All right, welcome to Rubberstamp Show and Tell, and we are doing a little show and tell of the Art Stamp Journal, a magazine out of Minnesota, and this is the premiere issue, July-August 1996, Volume 1, Number 1, going back quite a while, or quite a ways in time, and I don't know if I have more than one issue here. Okay, I didn't subscribe to this or something like that. But they sent me this issue here because Stampscapes was mentioned in it. I thought this was really cool. Whoever put this together, I could see obviously had some graphic design and professional illustration in their background. And when I just did a quick little flip through of this, because I couldn't remember if I've done a show and tell of this magazine before, I saw that they indeed, Lindahl and April Peterson, publisher and editor and co-editor here, and illustrator, they have backgrounds in graphic design. Both of them have graphic design backgrounds, degrees in that, professional illustration, etc. So, I mean, this is a well kind of laid out publication here. It's, it's small kind of printing and whatnot, but very professionally done right here. They did two-color printing on here. This is probably an 11 by 17, so they were able to get, two-color printing here on the back cover. So they probably did some, probably sent this away to a printer as opposed to, someone doing like a zine and going into like a copy house like a Kinko's and having it run off. But really nice, well done publication, especially for the first one here. And they have all these little illustrations in here that are, I can tell, someone has probably an art degree and experience in commercial art and design here. So, there's all kinds of little things like this, the consistency in the headers and whatnot, and these little illustrations throughout the magazine or the publication here. But I thought we'd just do kind of a little flip through of this one. Now, these types of things like this, they're not going to be full of full color types of examples and things like that were in kind of, bigger publications at the time. But there was a lot of spirit in these types of magazines right here. And they call it written by stampers for stampers, okay? It was like, I don't know, it was like Vamp Stamp News. Now, I think all publications are, you know what I mean? It's not like stamping is like this, mega, type of widely, gigantic, widely used medium in a gigantic industry or something like that. So Rubber Stamp News was a big magazine, but kind of there was like the smaller magazines like Vamp Stamp News and probably something like this, that were kind of, they were heavier in technique, I think, than maybe some of the other types of publications that were maybe more sample oriented or story oriented and whatnot. A lot of people just wanted to learn some techniques and whatnot. And that's what a lot of these types of magazines covered, and that's what they were kind of known for. Back in these days, we had, we didn't have the internet, but it was more, I mean, it was kind of early internet. So, like, I had a website out there, but I don't know how many people were looking at that. It was just kind of scanned images of our catalog, We didn't even have our own domain. 1996, we're talking about AOL or something like that, and on dial-up, okay? So, if you wanted to learn techniques, you often subscribed or purchased these types of publications here where they kind of, in written format talked about different types of techniques that you can apply to your pieces. Okay, there weren't a lot of. I keep saying this all the time. I don't want to sound like a broken record, but there weren't a lot of accessories back then, so it was heavy into techniques and things like that over, say, accessories and I don't know, just different types of products out there. But let's see, take a look in here and see what we have. Catalogs in review. Okay, paper parachute. Anyone remember these catalogs out there, companies, Rubber Poet. I seem to recall they had some cool images out there that I really liked. I don't know, they were out of Utah. I don't know why, but seems like a couple of the companies that really stood out to me early on that aren't around anymore were like Rubber Poet and Yes Pigs Can Fly, I think were out of Utah as well. Handprints, cat dancing design, the rubber farm, all creature rubber stamps. Right here it says catalog number 8. I wonder if they were putting out a catalog more than once a year. Maybe a new catalog meant a new release of images or something like that. Because if they were around for 8 years, that's quite a while. That would be talking about 1988. And that would be really early on Rubberstamp. Maybe they were around. I worked for a Stamp in the Hand company in 1987, so I don't know. Different stamping examples right here. Oh, I like this one right here. They have these little fun little puzzles. Guess how many art stamps were used to create the scene below? Okay, now let me see if I can guess this one. This is like scenic stamping, right? So I'm guessing that that cat is obviously on one mailbox, right? Is the bird stamped on top of them? On the cat? I think that's one stamp. I think it's 1, 2, 3, 4, because I don't think that house looks like it goes with that formally. So I'm saying 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm guessing the bird is a part of that one. No, maybe those little things underneath. Okay, so here. Tree, cat, mailbox. I'm guessing these plants are separate because that's the same image stamped 3 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to say 5. 5! I got it. 5. House, bridge path, grass, and cat on mailbox with bird and tree. I got it. I almost missed the mailbox here, but you wouldn't have that plant on the same design because this post would go way down here if it were really a mailbox, and you'd have that type of plant down here. So that one almost got me there, but I can tell that that bird was kind of a part of that cat. I don't know. Did you guess that too? Um, Look at this right here. This is like a scenic stamping type of thing right here. Now this publication is out of Minnesota here, okay, and this is their first issue. So, Lindahl, Diane Cofield, April Peterson. Lindahl, Diane Cofield, Michelle Cude, and Kathy Rebert. They're all out of Minnesota. So, when you're doing a publication like this and you're new to it, the publishing world, you get samples from, people around you. These people probably went to different stores in Minnesota. There were a lot of stamp stores in Minnesota at one point in time. And they probably belonged to clubs, so, I'm putting together a publication, does anyone have any samples? And that's what the Stamper Sampler did with, like, the Huntington Beach Stamp Club back in the day when they were first kind of getting off the ground. Here's Stamper Sampler right here. Let's see. Look at this. 16 sweet stamping suggestions. One of my favorite techniques is to use Marvy brush tip markers to color directly onto bold area or silhouette types of stamps. Okay, now that's the thing that D. Grunig first started doing. Okay, this is taking, Marvy brush tip markers like this, and you color directly onto your stamps, and you print them out with multiple types of, color impressions. These days, a lot of people, I don't know, they forgot about that different type of technique where so many designs are outlines where you stamp it and then you color it in like a coloring book. But a lot of images were kind of more solid, and that's how Stampscapes are too. A lot of tonal, but you color. If you want to color a tree, you just color it right on the stamp. It's not an outline of a tree to fill in. Another watercolor technique is to stamp a line type drawing, okay, that's what I'm talking about, onto a watercolor paper using either permanent ink or else pigment type ink like Color Box, and then embossing with thermography powder. So embossing powder, in other words, okay? And then you color in the design with regular watercolor markers, okay? So you're stamping the image out and then coloring it in. So see, these are the types of techniques. I don't know, they seem simple these days, but these are the types of tips here that people would be picking up. I like to use wallpaper samples for background paper. Try stamping a line drawing type stamp onto textured dark colored art paper using pigment ink. Sprinkle on some thermography powder, shake off the excess, and heat just until it barely melts. Now color in the design using colored pencils. So again, it's like embossing and coloring with colored pencils. I don't know. You saw colored pencils being used a lot back in the day. I don't see that being used a whole lot anymore. So there's been a lot of things that can come back around. Other fun toys are the fabric paints in squeezable bottles. So art and craft types of things being used in the the industry, as opposed to some of that type of thing being marketed directly to the paper arts community. You know what I mean? So, they're talking about spray coating, matte coat cardstock, working with Krylon clear, crystal clear, stuff like that. Anyways, I don't want to go on forever. I'm not going to read this whole thing right here, but these are the types of things that were, perfect for this type of publication here. It's like triggering, and then, of course, there's not very many visuals here because, this is not a color multiple step type of publication here in their first issue like this, especially just done in black and white. So, how to fold an envelope here. Okay, not to toot my own horn, but I saw this and I was like, psyched, maybe. Not really, but top 10 stamp companies with the best original art. Number one, Stampscapes. I do not remember seeing that before. But look at this, number two is Personal Stamp Exchange. When does Stampscapes beat out, Personal Stamp Exchange for anything, I don't know. For every, I don't know, 100 users of PSX stamps, it's probably one Stampscapes user or something like that, back in the day or whatnot. Or maybe the industry was so much smaller or something like that, that we were a little bit more well known. But again, like Stampscapes was perfect out in Minnesota too, sold a lot of stamps out there in that Minnesota with that type of, environment and terrain and, natural area there. So Stampa Barbara, mostly animals, Rubber Stamps of America, much very well established companies right there. But I don't know. I've never won any type of thing like that before, in terms of design. So it was kind of cool to see. And I don't know, if I saw that back in the day in 1996, I don't remember it. But I don't know, it's kind of cool to see now. The Envelope Mill feature book. This is a publication here. Maybe there was some kind of publication on making envelopes. A lot of the stamping done back in the day it was mail art. It was about stamping on envelopes. A lot of people were sending stuff around. Everyone mailed a lot more back then. Nowadays it's all email and whatnot. It's digital. But okay, look at this right here. See, this is a type of thing that we'd see in stamping. People would put together things like this sometimes. So radical rebus puzzles. So do you know these things right here where you kind of figure out what they say? So, okay, let's see if you can kind of figure it. I'm going to cover this up right here. So there's a cat, on someone's pants there. The bear, rubber stamp, the ink pen, a can, an ant, and a bee, like an egg beater. So have you figured it out yet? Okay, you can pause this video and I'll say it. Okay, so I'm guessing that's rub, bear, rubber, stamp. I don't get this one though. Stamp, pen? Can't, right? Can, ant, can't be, better, beater, right? Betterer. Rubber stamp something. Can't be better. Beater. Can't be better. I don't know. I'm not sure if we need the ER. This is the beater, though, right? You can't be beater or better, right? So, you'd see fun stuff like that in magazines. I saw stuff like this, in customer submissions in places like Rubberstamp Madness in those early days. I think more so back in the 80s, or something like that. I don't know if they were done in the 90s. Might have been. Okay, look at this right here. Product in review here. So, the inker, white pigment ink pad. Okay. All right. Who doesn't like their white? Who doesn't have a white pigment ink pad? Okay, so let's take a look and see what they were talking about. This is like, groundbreaking stuff. This is product in review, meaning it's kind of a newer thing right here. So, art stampers have been requesting an opaque white pad for years, okay? And Hero Arts, the unicorn one here, has answered that call with a white pigment pad called the Inker, with a handy-sized 2x2-inch inking surface. It seems like a little bit small. This product may or may not perform up to your art stamping expectations. To test it, we stamped an intricate doily heart-shaped image onto a dark green cardstock. The pad inked the large stamp very quickly and evenly, and the resulting impression was a crisp, milky white. To our delight, the rubber image cleaned off easily with no residue like some pigment inks can leave. I wasn't aware they left residue back then. The color intensity could have been whiter as the image tended to fade into a more translucent whitish film, similar to the results produced by opaque white inked markers, okay? So that's what I'm always talking about in these pads right here. I wish that we could stamp these out with a true opacity. Now this works pretty good on like the foil types of surfaces that aren't so absorbent. It's pretty opaque, okay? The color does show through, like I stamped on gold one the other day, and I think it's the Brilliance one that showed through. But it would really, it would show through with this one too. So that's what I've always hoped for is true opacity in some form of pigment ink pad. I don't know how they would possibly do it. I would speculate they would have to had something in like a bleed proof white. But the thing about the bleed proof white is whatever makes this thing so opaque and white is the thing that makes it dry so fast. So you can't have something like that in pad form. It would dry. You'd ink up this pad and it'd be dry. It'd be crusty dry like within 10 minutes or something like that. So I don't know what you do. They would have to, have some sort of powder on it or something like that. Okay, so anyways, let's see what they say here. Okay, here, in a similar test, white embossing powder added to your inked surface yielded much whiter results. Oh, so are they talking about not embossing it, but just adding it to it? If you're looking for a dull, muted white look for your snowflakes, doves, stars, this is an effective pad to use because it's going to dry and it's going to get darker. The color underneath is going to show through in the dry incarnation of that ink more so than the wet one when it looks more opaque. And it's still what happens these days. There hasn't been any advancements as far as that goes. So try using white embossing over the image. You may use any color embossing powder over this ink, but any color besides white or clear would contradict the effect. You know what I mean? So look at this suggested retail price, $250 for a 2x2-inch pad. So it'd be something like that, right? That's pretty cheap back in the day. That is going back a while, though, in the 90s. Look at this one right here. Studio 2 pens here. These were the first alcohol markers back in the day, okay? You didn't really see alcohol pens out there. Copics might have been around, but they weren't being distributed here in the U.S. as far as I saw anywhere in any art store. And I was in art stores all the time as an art student back in 1996 here. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I don't know. I'm getting my decades wrong. But anyways, yeah, Studio Twos weren't they, Copic weren't around at the time. I was still looking for art materials as a an illustrator or whatnot. But Studio Two, I got those as a student, I should say. And the pens that were really readily available were those really smelly solvent type ones, like the ad markers, a chart back, and whatnot. You take the cap off, and it has this really thick, kind of solventy odor. I don't know if they were or xylene pens, based. I don't think they were like healthy for you either. But they used to kind of market the Studio Twos as being like, non-toxic. It's just alcohol. You can breathe it in. You know, and it doesn't you're not getting these like really heavy fumes. I think I don't know, people probably get like super lightheaded with the other types of markers here. But Studio 2s were the ones. They were the double-sided, one chisel tip and one fine tip, not brush tip mark tip, like Copics or something like that. But those ones were the first, and I had a couple different sets of them. I bought one set on my own, just to use in my art classes. And then at some point in time, they sent me over a set of some different value ones. But these were great, though, because you can get these pens in a whole range of things in any value that you wanted. So not any color. They had I don't know, 70 different colors, but you can get that whatever manganese blue in a 10% if you wanted to, or a 20%, or a 30, 50, anywhere to 100% full saturation. They would just dilute them more and more so you can get a much lighter version. And I like really light shades so that I can kind of layer them on top of one another, and kind of tint things. So these were really great. And they were around at one time. I saw Printworks starting to sell them and market them, but and I was saying, oh, great, those, I was using them like 10 years earlier, but I always thought those were the perfect pens, especially for coloring, because most people were coloring with dye-based inks like this, okay? And then you have these alcohol inks that when coloring your stamped impressions, it wouldn't smear because, alcohol and water don't mix, so you can color it like that. I don't know, they just didn't catch on or something like that, or I don't know. Maybe they were just before their time because, 10 years later, Copic markers, and boom, everyone's crazy about alcohol markers at the, when those came about. Foil transfers like that. I always used to like the foil transfers that I used to see at different art shows back in the 80s and whatnot. I think you can actually take and put some of that. I wouldn't recommend it, but they were put, you can stamp something out, ink, not ink up, but you can put some of that adhesive type of thing and stamp it out on something. You probably have to clean that off right away, but and then you can take that foil type of stuff and put it down on there and get that foil type of impression. Kaleidocolor rainbow pads, remember those ones like that? The big problem with rainbow pads is that they were always bleeding into one another, being connected, so ClearSnap, I think ClearSnap, it's Tsukaneko here, created that type of pad that split apart like that. Great illustration right here. History of rubber and art stamps right here. I guess that's a rubber tree, obviously, right there. Well, look at this. They go into the history of, rubber here. 1770, 1923, 1883, Charles Goodyear right here. I seem to recall reading about this type of history in that rubber stamping book that I did a show and tell of. I'm looking at my bookshelf right now. I kind of forgot the name of that one. But anyways, that's pretty cool to see in this, magazine right here. Look at this right here. What about unmounted art stamps? Okay, so 1996, everyone's still pretty much using wood-mounted stamps back in the day here, but mounted generally refers to the finished stamp bought ready to go from the store or mail order company, okay? They're not talking about cling foam at that time or either, or something like that. So unmounted refers to the rubber die, which is later mounted to any number of surfaces. Home-done mounted stamps are not true mounted products. Okay, so I see what they mean by that. I thought, well, it's still a mounted stamp if someone mounts it at home, but they're talking about a product, being sold that way, okay? it's a wood-mounted stamp, but it's just not a home. It's not a product. It's not being, done that way. Okay, so let's look at this right here. That being said, types of mounting methods. Let's see what they were talking about. Okay, the Velcro. Adhere to the back of the die and the wood, enabling the stamper to easily interchange dies with one mount. Okay, so there's Velcro on the back of a die then? Seems like that would be hard to stamp out because you couldn't get that Velcro over the whole thing, could you? I mean, that would be a lot of effort if that was the case. Magnamount. I've heard about that Velcro back in the day. I don't know of anyone that did that though. Magnamount. Dies back with a flexible, sticky magnetic sheets. While the mount has a permanent magnet, dies can be quickly pulled on and off, although slippage is a common complaint. So they're saying that that magnetic roll that has a sticky kind of surface to it. So they were mounting rubber to that and then cutting it out like that, I guess. It seems like it'd be better if it was like an alphabet set that was just in squares or something of that sort. But I never saw any kind of mount with a magnet, a permanent magnet on it where they were doing that way. I think there might have been some sets that were being sold in stores, but I might be thinking about this tin of stamps that wasn't, magnets in the inside. Okay, now look at this one right here. Foam cushion on wood. Permanent method similar to what okay, now they're just talking about the foam. Like foam goes in between wood. Okay, so foam, okay, look at this. Foam cushion on acrylic blocks. A unique mounting that allows you to see through the block for placement of the image when stamping. Foam cushion on acrylic blocks. Well, that sounds like the cling, but that goes into this next one right here. Static cling. Oh, okay. Oh, I think the foam cushion, I don't know, maybe that was this type of, cling. Okay. But not a lot of people were doing it at the time, so I don't know. I don't know if they even, were talking about that specific thing. It didn't seem like they had seen it before. Okay, static cling, a clear plastic block that holds dies fairly well. Rubber can be moistened so it sticks better. So they're saying that you take like a acrylic block and you stick a die to it. Now this is what people are saying, hey, I got your rubber and it doesn't stick, okay? Now see, this isn't coming off of this. Like, this is just my rubber right here. But that doesn't work but they're saying you can put a little water on it. I didn't think this would stick at all, to tell you the truth. But I guess it does, I guess it, 100% red rubber will stick. But the problem is, it's like, if you ink this up, with ink, and then you adhere it to the paper, there's this kind of this, I don't know, this adhesion or whatever that takes place a little bit when that ink is transferring over. There's this vacuum, not adhesion, but vacuum kind of that's created. And I have a feeling that if I pulled this off, using this with dye-based ink or something like that, maybe especially like pigment ink, it's going to create such a vacuum between that material and my paper that when I pulled it, off without having tack and peel on it, which is on my block, I think it would, that rubber would just stay on the paper. I don't know. That's the first time I've heard anyone, mentioning kind of using rubber just directly with an acrylic block. Okay, the double stick tape. Have any of you used double stick tape before? On a block or something like that. Put your die on there and stamp like that. I've done that before. Back when I used to do kind of my own personal mounting of stamps from other companies that were only sold unmounted. Or, I'd get back from a show and my sister would help me at a show and she always bought stuff from Leavenworth Jackson and it was all unmounted. So we'd have to mount those up on wood blocks, so I would use the double stick tape. Not on one of my stamps, but just on a blank block. Put the die on there and I'd get this, I had multiple sizes of wood and I would stamp that impression on there for the indexing and then we would, mount the, the die on the other side. So, I don't know, people weren't using unmounted stamps too much back in the day. They were buying unmounted stamps to mount themselves, all right? So a lot of people were buying, like booths at conventions would have, a grab bag full of multiple sizes of, wood. And I used to take, used to get my wood like this, and wood had to be perfect. It was like a little nick or crack in it or something like that. I'd throw it in this one big box, and I'd take this gigantic box over to our stamp club back in the 90s, mid 90s and late 90s or whatever. I would just take it in there, and everyone would, I'd just give it to them for free, but everyone was like over there grabbing, wood, out of that, for their unmounted stamps. So, oh, fun times. Look at this right here, the rubber stamp, the Art Stamp Resource Directory here. Art Stamp Publications. There's a lot of publications here. Let's go down these. How many of these do any of you know? Andy's Stamp Newsette? Now, I've never heard of that one. Sebastopol, California. The Canadian Stamper, I think I have one of those issues right here. Designing with Effie, a magazine for stationery note and card decorators. 1 year, 10 issues here. That's out of Lexington, Kentucky. The Idea Factory, published by the Jayhawk Rubber Stamp Company. It's in Utah. I was going to say the Jayhawks in, what is it? Kansas, right? Now it's in Utah. Paper Crafters, the how-to publication for paper craft enthusiasts. I don't know if I know that. Quarterly out of Portland. National Stamper Graphic, I've done show and tells on that publication. Looks like they were in Vegas at this time, like 2 years earlier. Oh, published by Tailored Graphics, so it was probably purchased by someone else, because the original publisher was in Huntington Beach, where I lived. They were, just like really close to me. Rubber Stamp Madness, we all know them. Rubber Stampers World, out of Placerville, California. I think I might have an issue. Stamper Sampler, we know them. Stamper Sampler, and oh gosh, how many other different types of publications do they have? Tons. Somerset Studio, Stamping and Company. I don't know. It seems like they have 10 titles. Where women craft. I don't know, stuff all like that. Vamp Stamp News, Real Stampers Stamp, publication there. The Rubber Stamp Club newsletter out of Wisconsin, published by Cowtown Stamps. Okay, there's a lot of manufacturers or maybe stores doing some kind of, probably more like a zine or something like that. Okay, the Rubber Stamper. Look at this, coming in January 1997. Nationally known rubber stamper Suze Weinberg will serve as editorial consultant. And this is by Hobby Publications, so that's a big, publisher. And they were coming out with a rubber stamper at that time, so. Oh, just interesting, stuff to see here. Stamp of the Hand Company. Oh, look at this. They had their store here. Stamp of the Hand Company is the company that I used to work for from about 87 to about 92 or whatever. I was working for them a little bit still while I was getting, I don't know, kind of ideas on starting Stampscapes, which I did in 1993, but I was still teaching with a lot of the Stamp of the Hand stamp designs that I did with for them. National Stamper Graphic, Vamp Stamp News here. Send us your art stamped creations. Don't send it now, but they're asking for submissions here. I don't know. You used to have to, places like this, I don't think they had like a website back in the day, so you wouldn't really know. And not everyone was online either, at the time. So, I don't know. I love these types of things. I've never gotten rid of these publications here in terms of stamping here, but I always like to kind of go through them in these little show and tells like this, just because, I don't know, otherwise, stuff like this is just going to get lost in time, and you can, I can post this on YouTube in case anyone ever, somewhere out of the blue is looking for, the Art Stamp Journal. So, gotta thank, the publishers again. Names were Lindahl and April Peterson. For a great contribution to the medium back in the. I don't know. It's still kind of in its infancy. In terms of what it became. Stuff was going on in the '80s and stuff like that. That's really the I don't know, the groundwork for rubber stamping in terms of all that goes. But as far as like the industry goes, you know, we're talking about those mid 90s, the early 90s to late 90s, you know, to get things up and running. And, you know, those publications like these that were really valuable to, you know, the stamper and people wanting to learn new types of techniques, which is, you know, all of us stampers, right, you know, to today. So, anyways, hope you liked the video. If you recognize this magazine or some other magazines that, you know, you can put a suggestion down in the comments section. I'll see if I have a copy of it. I've been looking through them. I'm kind of almost through, I think, most of the different types of publications. I couldn't find an Expressions magazine that I thought I used to have several copies of, but I don't know. I have so many magazines. I need to go through them and check it out and see if I have some other types of issues around. I don't know. There's some international ones that I have too, but I don't know. Another one down. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it.